Have you ever been watching the news, following a huge court case, and just been left completely scratching your head at the end? One minute someone's found not guilty, and the next, they're on the hook for millions of dollars. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain and figure out exactly how that happens. And the answer, it turns out, is one of the coolest parts of our entire legal system.
Right? This is the exact scenario that makes so many of us go, wait, what? We see it all the time in high-profile cases. A person gets acquitted of a crime, they're found not guilty, and everyone thinks it's over. But then, boom, a second trial, a civil one, kicks off, and suddenly they're being ordered to pay out a massive amount of money. It feels like a total paradox, doesn't it? How can you be not guilty, but still be held responsible for the very same thing?
Well, here's the secret. It's not one system messing up or getting a second bite at the apple. It's because we have two totally separate legal systems, literally running side by side. And each one has its own rulebook, its own goals, and its own idea of what it means to win. So let's open up those playbooks and see what's inside. Okay, first things first. What's the point of the case? In the criminal justice world, it's all about society. When someone breaks a criminal law, it's considered a wrong against all of us, against the people. So the goal is to punish that wrong and stop it from happening again. But the civil system, it's on a completely different mission. It's about a private issue, one person's actions harming another. And its goal is simply to repair that harm, usually with money, to help the victim. So just think, criminal court is for punishment, civil court is for repair. That difference in purpose totally changes who's in the driver's seat. For a criminal case, it's always the government. It's a prosecutor representing the state or the people who brings the charges. That's why you always hear cases called things like the state of Florida versus. The actual victim is a really important witness, of course, but they're not the one running the show. Now flip over to a civil case, and the power shifts entirely to the individual. The person who was harmed, who we call the plaintiff, is the one who decides to sue and bring the case to court.
And here we go. This right here is the absolute key to the whole puzzle. It's something called the standard of proof. For a criminal trial, the government has to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. That is a super high bar. It means the jury has to be almost 100% sure. But in a civil trial, the standard is way, way lower. It's just a preponderance of the evidence. All that really means is it more likely than not? Is there a 51% chance they did it? If the answer is yes, that's enough. And that, right there, is how the same evidence can be not quite enough for a criminal conviction, but more than enough to hold someone responsible in a civil court.
And as you can probably guess, the outcomes are worlds apart. If you're found guilty in criminal court, you could lose your freedom. We're talking jail time, probation. Any fines you pay go straight to the government. But in civil court, nobody's going to jail. It's all about financial responsibility. If the court finds you liable, you have to pay money or damages directly to the person you harmed. Simple as that. Two systems, two totally different sets of consequences.
So let's zoom in on that civil system for a second. The whole guiding principle, the main idea, is about trying to make the victim whole again. Now look, the law isn't magic. It knows it can't rewind time or make an injury disappear. But what it can do is try to provide the financial resources to put that person back in the position they were in before anything bad happened, or at least as close as possible. So how does this system actually do that? It uses legal tools called remedies. And the most common remedy by far is money, which in a legal world we call damages. It's basically the money awarded to the person who was harmed. And there are really two main flavors of it. The first and most common type is called compensatory damages. And the name kind of gives it away, right? They are designed to compensate the plaintiff. This isn't about hitting the jackpot. It's a carefully calculated amount that's meant to cover the specific real-world losses that person suffered because of what the defendant did. And you can see here, this covers a lot of ground. We're talking about really concrete stuff, like a mountain of medical bills after an injury, or the wages you lost because you couldn't go to work. It could be the money to fix your wrecked car. It also tries to cover intangible things, like pain and suffering, which is the court's way of putting a dollar value on the physical and emotional stress the victim had to go through. Okay, but then there's this other, much rarer type, punitive damages. And these are a different beast entirely. They have nothing to do with compensating the victim for their loss. As the name suggests, their whole purpose is to punish the wrongdoer, especially when their behavior was just completely outrageous or malicious. This is the one little area where the civil system's goal kind of overlaps with the criminal system's. Punitive damages are all about sending a message. The court is basically saying, what you did was so unbelievably wrong that we're going to make an example out of you to make sure nobody else ever thinks about doing it. This is where you see those mind-boggling, multi-million-dollar awards that make the headlines.
So, we've laid out these two parallel tracks of justice. But why is this actually important for you to know? Well, because understanding that this dual system exists is in itself a form of empowerment. It shows you that there's more than one path to justice available to people.
Think about it. The criminal system is absolutely essential for punishing public wrongs, but it doesn't always make things right for the individual victim. A criminal conviction doesn't pay their medical bills or cover their lost income. The civil system is what fills that gap. It gives regular people the power to hold someone directly accountable for the personal harm they've caused, even if a criminal case wasn't successful or never even happened.
If you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, please let it be this. It boils down to two different questions. Criminal court asks a very narrow question. Did they break this specific law? But civil court asks a much broader one. Are they responsible for causing this person's harm? And because they're different questions, you can absolutely get two different answers from the exact same set of facts.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Knowing that there are these two separate paths to accountability, each with its own rulebook, does having that second path make our whole system of justice more fair and complete? Or does it just make everything more complicated? It's a really interesting question about what justice really means. Thanks so much for digging into this with me today.